Yo guys, welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about a 30-man roster. So if you are a guild out there who constantly has a bench, or you want to over recruit in order to make sure if people have to miss raid for whatever reason, or make substitutes, or flex your roster a little bit for a particularly hard fight, this is the video for you. I'm going to be talking about why I chose each one of these classes for this 30-man roster, and I'm even going to include a breakdown of how I would organize 10-mans with this roster. So, thanks so much for watching this video. This was requested by somebody in my Discord, so if you are interested in getting me to do certain types of videos, just join my Discord. I'll have a link in the description below. You can go on there and make any requests for the type of content that you want to see me do. I think this is an approach to Wrath that a lot of people are planning on making, with just without any guide whatsoever on how to get there and how to build out their 30-man roster. So I hope that this video is of a help to you. Even if this isn't what your guild is planning on doing, maybe you'll learn something out of this too. So without any delay, let's jump right into it. As you can see, I have the 30-man roster here. Just a quick shout out. This bench, for example, isn't necessarily a bench. I mean, it's gonna be rotated, you know. So don't think of anything too seriously. But let's jump right into it. Let's go first with the tanks. So as you can see, we have a prop paladin here, we have a blood DK here, and we also have another prop paladin on our bench here. So the reason we're doing this is because, of course, prop paladin is our best tank in the entire game, bar none. So we obviously want to run with one prop paladin for sure. And then our second best tank is definitely our DK tanks, who also scale insanely well. And just like I've talked about a million times before, they become the tank of the expansion come ICC. So we definitely want to have them, and we want a third tank just in case, you know, you have to run 3 tanks on Patchwork, for example. You might have to run 3 tanks on like Colgarn, for example. All sorts of different things. If your tanks have to miss a raid, for example, you're gonna have 3 10-man, so you're gonna want to have 3 tanks. This is just a super common thing to run into, so definitely having a third tank prepared for that situation is really good to have in mind. You can rotate these prop paladins in and out comfortably. I think the best in slot tank setup for phase 1 and phase 2 of Wrath is actually a double prop paladin anyway. So between the 3 tanks, your blood DK is probably the one who's going to be off-spec DPSing more than any of them. If he's not off-spec DPSing, he might be on the bench as well. So just keep that kind of stuff in mind. These people, as well as many others in your roster, need to have good, comfortable, and prepared off-specs. This is the only way that this works, is if people actually put in the effort to make decent offsets. So this blood DPS right here, or this blood tank right here, is definitely going to be DPSing a lot. And that's really up to him. He can go Unholy, he can go Frost. It really doesn't matter all that much. Either way, we'll be completely fine with the roster. Moving down the list, we actually have 2 rogues here. And I have them listed as combat. Really, it can be whatever. They can be both assassination. They can be 1 assassination, 1 combat. It can be whatever combination you want. Just depends on what kind of gear you have, what your rogues are planning on doing. This is the kind of flexibility that you'd want to have in a situation like this. You play whatever is best in that phase or with your current gear. So we're just throwing combat here just to have a spec listed. We like running 2 rogues because rogues are bringing tricks for our affliction locks, and we are running 4 of them, even 1 demo. So having 2 rogues probably it's always going to be my preferred recommendation. I think you can bring it down to 1 rogue, but I never want to see 0. And 3 rogues just kind of feels like a lot. So I think running 2 is really like that perfect like medium where you're getting a little bit of everything there, and plus they do phenomenal damage, genuinely like really good damage throughout the entire expansion. So they are one of the best DPS in the game, on top of being something that like you actually want to bring to buff other people in your raid. So 2 rogues I think is a good sweet spot there. We are bringing 1 Unholy and 1 Frost, each for their own respective buffs that they're bringing, and of course because they're just very meta DPS, they're incredible. So no brainer there. Now we are bringing one arms warrior. This is of course an arm/fury warrior, whatever he ends up playing, depending on the phase and all that. This is your token warrior. I think it's okay to have a token warrior, of course. If you're familiar with my channel, you know that oftentimes I'm just kind of pooping on warriors all the time. It's truthfully, you can take one token warrior for the entire expansion, and of course, eventually you might even want 2 in ICC. So it's completely reasonable to have 1 here, and him playing arms, or at least focusing on playing arms for the early on in the expansion, is going to be really good for your raid. Again, we're going to have our token Feral here, bringing that same buff that a Fury Warrior would be bringing, as well as an extra Innervate and extra Battle Res. I think having 3 Druids is really, just like having 2 Rogues, 3 Druids is like that perfect sweet spot where you have just enough Battle Reses to matter and get by in a 25-man raid environment. We bring our Ret for the 3% damage increase that they bring, as well as Paladin buffs, and as well as other off-spec utility that we might need as well. Ret is just really, really good. Solid. The damage is not quite there comparatively, but they are solid, and I definitely want to have 1 token Ret in my raid at all times. And similarly, Enhance. Enhance is a absolute pumper in Wrath. They do great damage, and they're providing our attack power buff here. They're also providing extra spell haste totem if we need it. They're providing a bloodlust if we need it. So you got to have your Enhance. In this situation, in a 30-man roster, since we've now touched on shamans, as you can see, I want to take 3 shamans. Shout out to the elemental here. I mean, I know you guys have maybe, if you're familiar with my channel, I don't actually love elemental in Wrath. I just think it's a little lackluster and a little low on damage, but having that 3rd shaman there and available in case the others need to miss raid for any reason, and just to have that extra shaman for 10-mans is pretty good and really nice quality of life to have. And elemental can totally get by. There's no reason why you can't do the entire expansion with an elemental shaman in your raid. You do not need to go that far into the min-max just to clear the expansion. You'll be fine with 1 elemental. Of course, they can pump if they are played right. Absolutely. So that's the reason why we're bringing 3 shamans. Of course, we have our token demo. Not much to say here. You got to have your demo lock. We do have 2 shadow priests. We have 1 here in the starting roster, 1 on the bench as well. I actually think shadow is kind of like a slept on caster in a lot of ways. They can do some really good damage. That's very useful. On top of the fact that they bring your replenishment, and they bring disperse, and disperse is massive, not only for 25-man but for 10-mans. You really want to have that disperse for things like Algalon Big Bangs or Soaking Vile Spirits on Lich King. They're just super useful. They're a good off-spec healer to have around. They just provide good utility, and overall the damage is not that bad. I think I'm totally fine bringing 2 Shadow Priests, although there's definitely room to wiggle here. If you wanted to just bring 1 Shadow Priest and bring another Mage or another Warlock, or even another Balanced Druid, you could totally do that. But this is my recommendation. As you can see, we're taking 2 Fire Mages. Of course, these are Arcane/Fire Mages, so whatever they need to play for the given week or for the given encounter, they'll play whatever. I think 2 Mages is pretty solid. You could take 3 later on in the expansion, especially in ICC. They really take off there. But I think 2 is just kind of like a solid recommendation. I think 1 is actually really optimal for phase 1. But you're going to want 2 in Ulduar and TOGC, so you may as well just run 2 the entire expansion. And there's definitely going to be enough people wanting to play Fire Mage, as it is one of the most fun classes to play in Wrath. So I think there will be an abundance of Mage players wanting to scratch that Fire Mage itch, and we can definitely slot in 2 here. Now for Hunter, I do like to run 2 Hunters. You can definitely, bench 1 pretty much at all times, or just rotate them in, or however you see fit. But 2 Hunters is a really nice quality of life to have with their Mr. X. They bring really great damage, and between the Enhance and the 2 Survivals, they're only like competing on male loot with each other, and that's not a whole lot of competition. They're able to get gear pretty decently quick, and anytime a ranged weapon drops, obviously the first one will go to 1 Hunter, but if there's only 1 Hunter, he's just going to get funneled everything. All the rest of it's just going to get disenchanted. 2 Hunters is actually a really solid happy medium for me. I like to see it. I think it's good coverage of replenishment, and I think it just works out super well. And you'll definitely want to have 2 hunters when you hit TOGC, as this is like a make or break moment when having 2 hunters makes the whole raid feel infinitely better. As you can see here, I do recommend running a 4 Affliction Lock roster with the 30-man comp. Um, there's definitely room to wiggle here if you don't want to stack that many Affliction Locks, but the truth is, like, Affliction Lock is that good. They are genuinely like one of the best DPS in the game, and it does not matter if Blizzard is buffing or not buffing the raids. They are going to be one of the best DPS in the entire game on every single fight. They are always competitive, no matter if it's single target or cleave. They are very, very, very good. This is the class to stack for sure, and I think it's comfortable to say that there are enough people interested in playing Affliction Lock to bring this many. This will make your raids feel so much better. You'll be able to hit DPS checks way more comfortably by running this many, and it won't feel like they're falling behind because they're not getting enough loot. There is enough caster loot to go around for them, and they will be the ones receiving the power infusion and the tricks of the trade, so they are going to get funneled. So it's a great class. I think taking 4 is a good recommendation for a average or regular guild. And stacking more and more Affliction Locks is definitely going to be the play for, you know, things like Yogg Zero and whatnot. Now, I always say 1 Balanced Druid is kind of there as your reliable Balanced Druid, bringing all of the buffs that they bring, which is so many freaking buffs, so many. 1 Balanced Druid is plenty for me. You can always live and get by if this guy had to miss raid. It's no problem. A lot of it is also covered by your Shadow Priest as well, and other areas of the raid as well. So it's not a huge deal if you don't have your Balanced Druid, but having one is great. He will exist to provide so many buffs and good AoE, good overall damage, and people want to play balance. All of your people who have stayed playing Balanced Druid for all of TBC are literally going to be so hyped to play Balance and Wrath because it's the same class, but infinitely better. Infinitely better. So this is a great, easy, no-brainer token class to bring to the raid. Now for the healer core, we are taking 2 Holy Paladins, as I always recommend. 1 Disc Priest, 1 Rested Druid, 1 Resto Shaman, and shout out to our Holy Priest here. Now this is just kind of the standard healer comp that I always recommend. Your Resto Shaman brings your Mana Tide, your Resto Druid provides the best blanket healing coverage, your double Holy Paladin are the 2 most OP healers in the game, providing insanely, infinitely strong tank healing, as well as big bomb burst healing as well, and your Disc Priest providing a huge coverage of absorbs. You have double Divine Sack here, as well as, like, of course, your Prop Paladin's Divine Sack, and even your Ret, who can spec into Divine Sack as well. You have good raid CDs, you have good healing coverage. This 5-man healer core will carry you through the entire game and can do everything in the entire game comfortably. However, there will be the occasional fight where you might say, hey, I think we need to 6 heal this. And that's totally fine. A lot of guilds will 6 heal some encounters in Wrath. You will see it happen for sure. Even some of the best guilds will choose to 6 heal. Can you get away without 6 healing? Absolutely. We've 5 healed. Hell, we've even 4 healed some encounters for Realm Burst achievements in Wrath of the Lich King. We absolutely have on the private server scene. But there are fights like Algalon, Firefighter, Freya hard mode, Syndragosa, Dreamwalker, you want to probably 7 or 8 heal. There's a lot of fights where you'd want to 6 heal, is what I'm trying to get a point across to. Lord Marigar is another one. Definitely would want to consider 6 healing before you get a lot of loot. Your Holy Priest is great for that. You can just easily swap him in for the Resto Shaman, just and give Resto Shaman a break, throw him on the bench for a little bit, or swap him in with the Resto Druid, or swap him in for the Holy Paladin, depending on the fight. Or just swap him in for one of the Affliction Locks, or a Fire Mage, or a Hunter, if you want a 6 heal. There's definitely tons of room here. If you choose to 6 heal certain encounters, your Holy Priest is the perfect healer to slot in as that 6th healer. They should feel included in the healer core and included in all decisions, and shouldn't feel like a reliable benchable healer. Make sure that they are always rotated in and get enough playing time, because they are an absolutely solid healer. And one of my favorite guilds of all time in the private server scene ran with a Holy Priest the entire expansion. and claimed all the important realm first. They ran double Holy Paladin, Disc, Resto Druid, and a Holy Priest. They didn't take a Resto Shaman at all. You can absolutely get by without a Resto Shaman in a lot of scenarios. I feel like I'm getting off on a tangent though, because now I'm talking about healing meta. But this is my recommendation for 30-man comp. Now, we're 15 minutes in. Let's take a look at the 10-man comps. Now, this is kind of how I recommend to shake it out. You can see there's definitely a lot of off-spec flexibility here, but the idea of these 10-man rosters is it's taking everyone from the 30-man roster and dividing it up very, very evenly. We want to try to split things up so that we aren't competing too much on loot, and so that we aren't competing for important trinkets, important gear itemizations, and that we also have a super balanced comp in all of these rosters so that we can kill the hard encounters like Algalon and Lich King and all of the hard encounters, Firefighter. So this is how I'd break it down. As you can see, 10-man, let me just start from the beginning. One thing that I love to have on every 10-man roster for those hard encounters, we are specifically aiming for the hard encounters, because anything else that isn't the super hard ones, we can get by with whatever roster, with whatever healing comp, with whatever tank. But specifically the hard ones, we want to make sure that we are over prepared and providing the best coverage of all raid utility as possible. So the best healer recommendation is going to be your Holy Paladin and a Disc Priest, and your best tank is going to be a Prot Paladin. As long as those three things are covered, then you should be able to approach any encounter and get by just fine. Now, like I said, we have one shaman for every raid, which is great. This 10-man one, we're running with a Prot Paladin with one of our DKs running a blood off spec. This is our Frost DK in the main raid going as our off tank. The reason we have the DK do it is because Prot warriors are just so bad that you genuinely don't even want your warrior to off spec it, because you might just feel like you're hard carrying him and 9-manning a lot of encounters, because Prot warrior is so bad. As you can see here, the distribution of loot is great. We have one rogue, and he's not competing with anyone else for leather gear. We have one hunter who's not competing with anyone else for mail gear. We have our arm/fury warrior who's not competing with anyone else for two-hand weapons. He gets all of them. He only competes with one DK for plate gear. Then we have 1, 2, 3 caster DPS, which is great, and we have 2 main raid healers. The only person off-specking here is our Frost DK. So this 10-man one is a beautiful raid roster. Great coverage, a rainbow coverage of classes, and a really good distribution. 10-man 2, however, this one, it's going to be a little difficult. Probably the most gimped roster of the 3, but there's plenty of room to be completely fine. As you can see, our main tank is going to be our Blood DK from main raid, and we're going to have our Feral just go ahead and go bear form for the bosses that we need 2 tanks on. We, of course, have our Shadow, Demo, Aptly, and Fire, providing 4 caster DPS from main raid. Look, there's no way around it. It's going to have to be 3 or 4. There's just going to be some competitive loot here and there, and it's okay. There's no way around it. You just kind of have to bite the bullet there. Your Feral is not competing with anyone for leather loot. He gets all the leather loot that he wants. Your Blood DK, who I said before would do the most amount of off-spec DPSing in the main raid, has no one to compete with for plate gear besides the Ret. The Ret doesn't have anyone to compete with for two-handers. He gets all of the two-handers. Your Survival Hunter gets all of the mail loot. All of it. Now, in terms of like a roster and how you'd handle 10-man 2, you'd actually have... So this is your Resto Shaman. This is not a mistake here. This is your Resto Shaman playing Elemental. Because the best thing I could recommend is a Holy Paladin and a Disc Priest for those super hard fights. Again, like we said before, like on Firefighter. Resto Shaman is going to struggle in a fight like that. Can you get by without it? Absolutely. There's a video on my channel, literally, where I'm playing Resto Shaman with a Resto Druid as my healing partner, and we do 10-man Algalon, like week 2 or 3 of it being released on a server. You can absolutely do it without a Holy Paladin and Disc Priest. I'm just saying, it's my recommendation to play it safe, do Holy Paladin Disc as often as you possibly can. If you ever wanted to 3 heal an encounter in a 10-man, Your Resto Shaman is there to provide the best coverage for that. He's also just going to go good LE DPS, and hopefully your ret has saved up some good Holy Aspect gear to provide good gameplay for your Holy. And he's being assisted by your main raid Disc Priest, who will do a ton of the heavy lifting for this 10-man. So I think overall, this 10-man is probably not our best comp, but still super solid. You have some big hitters here, like your Disc Priest, your main blood, your Demo Lock gets to play here. You have some big hitters here who are going to carry this 10-man, and you should be completely fine. Now your 10-man 3, now we do have a more of a meta comp here. We do have our prop paladin. We are able to provide a holy priest who will off-spec disc for this 10-man, and a main raid holy paladin here. We have 2 affliction locks, a fire mage, and a balance druid, so that's 4 casters competing on caster loot. We have a rogue who's only getting, who's only competing. He doesn't compete with anyone for leather loot. He only competes with the enhanced terms of weapons for the one-handers. And then you have your Unholy DK, who gets all of the 2-hand weapons who drop, as well as all the plate gear that drops. He gets it all. And he will be our off-spec blood for this raid. Overall, I feel like these comps are great. This is a great recommendation for you to go with. Of course, it's not always going to be like this. This is just my recommendation in a vacuum, but that's just not how the world works. People drop, people quit playing the game. You aren't going to recruit this absolutely perfect in a vacuum comp. You just won't. And your 10-mans, the chances of you getting a 100% attendance on 3 different 10-mans on any given raid night, probably not going to happen. You're going to need to have some alts. You're going to need to have some backup plans, of course. But this is just going to be my recommendation, and just wanted you guys to hear my thought process on how I would build out a 30-man roster, including 10-mans. I hope that I've covered everything that I possibly could for you. There's so much to go over here between the 10-mans and the 25-man rosters. When you want a 6 heal, when you want a 1 tank, so many things. So I hope that you've just been able to get some nuggets of information from me with these recommendations so that you can take this back to your guild and your future preparation for Wrath Classic. Again, thanks so much for watching. If you want to see more videos like this, please just sub to the channel. If you want to recommend anything for this channel that you want to see me do, just comment it down below or join my Discord and send me a recommendation. I'm open ears for anything at all. Again, guys, thanks so much for watching. Seriously, take care. Peace.